Welcome to Politics Unplugged. I'm Ann Trujillo, and we are just over 50 days away from Inauguration Day here in Colorado. January 8th, the day Jared Polis will be sworn into office as the 43rd governor of the state of Colorado. And this week I had a chance to sit down with the governor-elect. We talked election night and where he hopes to lead our state. I'm surely you were feeling really good about the election. I mean, you had a resounding 10-point lead over Walker Stapleton. What does that say to you about Colorado, about this particular election?
Well, I think we were able to excite people about our potential as a state, and it's really a chance to deliver. And you know, Democrats and Republicans are equal numbers in our state. The unaffiliated voters are the biggest group, right. And they chose to give me a chance. More broadly, I think they chose to give Democrats a chance in the state legislature, and we have to show that we can produce, meaning how can we save people money on health care, improve our schools, and expand a free full-day kindergarten. So how can we accomplish really major things that really improve the quality of life for people who live here?
Do you think that the numbers prove that it was Walker Stapleton the candidate, or was it the Republican Party, President Trump, that they were turning against?
I'm not one to give analysis. You have experts for that. I'm just somebody who wants to do a good job for Colorado. And I think, again, it was our ideas that won the day. People knew that I was not a supporter of President Trump, and I certainly don't stand for his divisive brand of politics, his rhetoric. But we didn't want a governor that was just going to stand against Trump. Also, people cared about what my ideas were to protect and improve our parks and open space, to fix our roads, to have full-day kindergarten, to move towards renewable energy. So we successfully stayed focused on those big ideas and really talked about, the potential to make our state even better.
Well, Colorado was second in the country for voter turnout. How do you interpret those numbers?
Look, I'm proud that we were able to do our part to inspire people to vote, because we know that that takes time. People want something to vote for. There's other people who were inspired to vote for or against President Trump, whose name wasn't on the ballot, but loomed large over races like Jason Crow's and Mike Kaufman's. We also worked hard on the ground, meaning we had over 5,000 volunteers in all parts of the state, going door to door and having those conversations with voters about the historic importance of this election.
But you've been talking to people. I mean, what is it? I know you have your issues that you've talked about, but what have you learned from the trail about what it is that people really want to see in our next governor?
Well, I view my election as a mandate for bold leadership to really talk about the big ideas and how we can move forward to achieve 100% renewable energy, to have free kindergarten for every kid, to save families money on health care, and really to make our state work for everybody, Ann. And that's something you learn when you travel in Trinidad and Sterling and Cran Junction. I mean, you hear a lot of stories about, yes, we have economic growth, but how do we make it work for our whole state? Even in the Denver metro area, so many families that maybe you have a job, but what does that mean if your rent has gone up at 10% and your wages have gone up at 3%? And for many families, a 15-minute commute 10 years ago might be a 35-minute commute, which is time away from your family and what you love to do. So I think we really need to roll up our sleeves, and we're ready to work with everybody to make progress.
You talk about the entire state. Are you planning on putting satellite offices in other parts of the state so people have access to the governor's office?
Yesterday I was in Pueblo and Colorado Springs, and I put 35,000 miles on my Ford Escape over the course of the campaign, and I anticipate we'll put even more mileage on so that I can be present in different communities to hear from people about local priorities.
So you won't be putting satellite offices in or any outreach in those rural communities that
You'd be surprised how small the governor's office is. So while the governor gets, one thing we've talked about is moving some of the state executive agencies that do a lot of important work closer to the people that they reach to provide more efficient service on the ground. The governor's office itself is very small, just a handful of people. They will be scheduling me to appear all over the state so I can have listening sessions to hear from people.
So you'll be working to put some people in place outside of Metro Denver?
Absolutely. We already do have some, but we certainly look forward to looking to where we can bring services closer to where people live. And at the same time, save money, because one of the highest overhead areas to operate in the state is, of course, the Denver metro area.
Let's talk about 109 and 110, which did not pass. So we know we'll see transportation on the ballot in 2019. What can you and the General Assembly do in this year coming up that will address this a wholly important issue for Colorado.
We learned two things by watching the failure of 109 and 110. I'm particularly glad that 109 failed. That was the initiative that would have put the state billions of dollars in debt, put us on the hook for the interest payments without any new revenue. It would have taken away from our ability to deliver free full-day kindergarten,
yes,
as an example. So I think the voters have ruled out bonding with no new revenue, and they've ruled out sales tax to pay for roads. Everything else is in the realm of the possible, and we look forward to working with the business community, Republicans, Democrats, the legislature, to figure out how people do want to pay for roads.
But you must have some idea of how you want to proceed with that.
You know, at this point, the only things that we're ruling out are bonding without new revenue and sales tax, which the voters spoke very decisively on last week.
What would you like to see as Senate Bill 1 and House Bill 1 coming
Well,
up?
I want to respect the legislative prerogative to, determine the ordering of bills. Certainly, we want to see bills reach our desk that reduce health care costs, save families money, expand coverage. We want to see, of course, a bill to fund full-day kindergarten in our state. Several set of bills that we have great ideas working with the legislature on to make our state even more hospitable for renewable energy and save consumers money on their electricity bills. And then, of course, we want to tackle tax reform and reducing special interest loopholes and passing the savings along to families.
You know, one of the things that people frequently would email us about during your campaign is to say, he has all these ideas. How is he going to get these paid for?
Well, we like to focus on ideas that save money. So, again, it was, I think those kinds of questions would have been asked by people that probably weren't voting for me because they obviously didn't get what we were talking about. In healthcare, it's not a problem of spending more money. That's the last thing we need to do, Ann. We need to spend less money on healthcare. Our country spends twice the percentage of our GDP on healthcare of any other industrialized country. So we need to spend less on healthcare, not more. A better question to have asked during the campaign is, what would you like to do with the healthcare dividend that we'll get from all the savings that we hope to promote through better policies?
And?
Full-day kindergarten, preschool. We'd love to work to expand our trail system and parks and serve Coloradans even better.
When do you see that full-day kindergarten becoming reality?
That's one of our priorities
soon?
For this legislative session. So we would love to work with the legislature for the next budget year to make sure that that priority is met.
You picked some big names in Colorado, some top Democrats for your transition. Talk about why you picked certain people for certain roles, and will Republicans eventually end up on your staff?
We reached out very broadly on our transition committee, and we also want to cast a broad net for the key recruitments to run the state agencies of government. So we wanted to include in our transition committees people of all different perspectives, people from across the state. And, one thing to acknowledge is when you're governor, you're not just governor for the people that voted for you, you're a governor for the whole state. And we wanted to make sure that was reflected in the transition committees.
What does that look like? Do you have specific numbers? Do you have specific quota?
Yeah, people can, we also are fully transparent in this process. People can look at our website, boldlyforward.co, and you can see who the members of those transition committees are. If you're willing to or interested in entering public service and applying for an executive position, that's the place to do it.
I guess my question is, are you looking to put a number of Latinos in certain roles, a number of women in certain roles to better reflect?
Yeah, there's no quotas in any role. We want the very best people for every position, and of course we want our cabinet, just like our transition committee does, to really look like the state of Colorado and all of our diversity.
Are you disappointed Amazon's not coming here? Stay with us. We're talking music with the governor-elect when we come back. Are the Rolling Stones coming to Denver? Because I figured you'd know.
I wouldn't know. There's no requirement to tell the governor before they come.
Who would you go see?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I have to find some time to enjoy those sorts of things. But we're focused on the transition.
I know, but I hear you're a Fish fan. Is that true?
No comment on those.
Okay. All right. Well, that was one of the lighter moments during my chat with Governor-elect Polis. We also talked about Colorado's economy, including Amazon's decision to put HQ2 on the East Coast, not here in the Centennial State. Are you disappointed Amazon's not coming here?
Look, it had its challenges if it did, and we didn't need it in the sense that we have a lot of smaller scale economic development opportunities that might have a better return for people. But, you know, look, if they had chosen Colorado, we would want to make sure it was done in a way that improved the quality of life for those of us already here, instead of just increased traffic and increased housing and deteriorated the quality of life for Coloradans.
What do you think about those incentives? I think it's, what, $2 billion they're saying is the incentive for Amazon in Virginia and New York.
Yeah, I don't believe those are good uses of taxpayer money, you know, and we have some local incentives, but in general I cast a skeptical eye on forcing taxpayers to subsidize businesses.
The soon-to-be House Majority Leader Alec Garnett pledged last week to bring a new red flag bill to the floor this year. Would you like to see an identical bill, or where would you make changes to what?
I was happy with the bill that they discussed last session. The key thing we want to accomplish with regard to gun safety is finding a way when somebody is having a mental health crisis and is really a danger to themselves and others, that they temporarily lose access to their guns, and of course their rights are fully restored when they recover their health. This is just a tragic type of situation when it occurs. It's often parents of a 19-year-old who see and are living that mental health crisis and have no way of removing access to the weapons. And tragically, you know, we always talk about the violent crime side, but even more often than that, and it can end in a suicide. And I think that we can reduce our suicide rate by having a good red flag law in our state.
Is that important to you to get that done this year as well?
I think we'll be able to have that, get that all the way through the legislative process. It's had bipartisan support in the past. I hope that that continues, and we look forward to really saving lives.
What do you say to folks who say that with Democrats in control here in Colorado that you'll run roughshod over the Republicans?
Well, look, the unaffiliated voters of the state have given Democrats an opportunity to produce results. I think that the Republican state legislators will hopefully work with the Democrats on priorities like saving money on health care, expanding kindergarten. So I hope that we can proceed on most of these areas in a bipartisan way. But it's never, after an election, it's not a question of doing something to the other side. I mean, thankfully, the election's over. I mean, that was enough of trying to do things to the other side. My goodness, people get so locked in during those election cycles. That's over. So now it's just time to roll up our sleeves and get to work and produce for all Coloradans.
Okay, so you're still a congressman for now.
I am.
Anything you want? Any unfinished business?
There is some, yeah. I do hope that we can pass a farm bill that finally legalizes industrial hemp, which is an important crop in Colorado, and would allow, you know, interstate importation of seed, would allow concurrent reforms at our own State Department of Agriculture to reduce costs. So that's a key part of the farm bill that I've been championing, probably on deck for the lame duck session. We also have a potential closure of the federal government. The funding runs out in early December, so that at least has to be continued into next year, if not funded through the entire budget cycle.
Since your win, have you had a conversation with Governor Hickenlooper? Has he given you any advice?
Oh, I've talked to him several times. I would say that Governor Hickenlooper, Lieutenant Governor Donna Lynn are doing an amazing job on this transition, meaning they're working with us, very hands-on, to make sure that we can move forward. I've met with Governor Hickenlooper, talked to him several times, and they've really done everything that they can to make sure that we can continue this great legacy of economic growth that they've had, and hopefully take it to the next level and produce results.
Give me an example of some advice that he's given you, maybe that took you by surprise.
Well, we had a broad-ranging conversation. I mean, mostly about the different skills we need at the different state agencies. We talked about some of the roles of the state agencies. You know, what a lot of people don't know is that right after you get elected governor, you have about 60 days to basically fill out the senior levels of all the agency directors of state government that are responsible for delivering efficient services to people. So Governor Hickenlooper's team all expires January 8th. There's no one running government if we don't have our team ready to go. Not that some of them might not be willing to stay on for a few weeks after that if we don't have an agency director already in place. But really, it's on us now to make sure we recruit the best and the brightest, even beyond Colorado's borders, from other states as well as Colorado, to help make sure that we can continue to run this state well.
Are you saying you're cleaning house?
No, we're certainly not ruling out anybody just because they worked in the Hickenlooper administration. I think that some members of the administration might be applying for positions, but they will apply like anybody else, and you might see some names that served in prior administrations, whether it was Hickenlooper or Owens or Ritter, and you'll see a lot of new names too.
Did you have advice for Joe Neguse, who's taking over your seat in the second?
Joe's going to do a great job. I just talked to him the other day. He's doing something that I remember fondly a decade ago, freshman orientation, along with Jason Crow. I think for any legislator, it's always important to act on behalf of your constituents. When you get to the Denver Capitol or the U.S. Capitol, there's a whole array of lobbyists and special interests, and it's always important to keep in mind who you work for, the people that sent you there, and how you can produce results for them.
Any angst on your part, and maybe angst isn't the right word, but here you're leaving Congress, and Congress is finally democratically controlled.
I did have the opportunity to serve in the majority for a couple of years when I was first elected, and we have a historic opportunity in Colorado with majorities in both chambers that are excited to work with me as governor to really move forward on saving people money and improving our quality of life.
But you're not feeling like you're missing out on being in Washington, knowing that here's an opportunity during really unusual times in Washington?
It's unusual times. It's also kind of a record low level of functioning in Washington. I sure hope that the new majority can fix that. But we want to use that as an example of what not to do in Colorado, and we really want to work together to produce real results.
Yeah, and is there any... Stay with us. We're talking about college education for our Denver kids when we come back.